How did you know there was demand for it on Amazon already?
I think we knew that there probably would be based on the demand we saw from our own website. You really have to meet people where they are. Our brand is all about trust. We're backed by
Right.
a team of 11 doctors. Everything is clinically researched, third party tested. It was just kind of obvious to me that we would have demand there.
All right, everybody. I am joined by Allie Egan from Veracity Health, and her story is so incredible because as an entrepreneur myself and someone who works with thousands of entrepreneurs, we are always wondering who can be successful selling on Amazon, what it takes to be successful, and oftentimes the best brands come from necessity. So, Allie, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I was reading a little bit about your backstory. I like to kind of be surprised, but I need to be a little bit prepared, right?
Okay.
What was it that sparked you to start this brand that has grown into something that has helped so many people?
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily see myself starting this, 10 years ago, but I went through a health journey that really opened me up to the need to create this. So, long story short, I was trying to get pregnant and ended up experiencing infertility. And through that process was sent for kind of the normal workup to figure out what's wrong. And I very casually got diagnosed with a metabolic health disease, which was shocking to me because I was a marathon runner. I ate super healthy. I wasn't overweight. And it was so casual. It was like I had never been diagnosed with like a disease. You're diagnosed
Right,
with illnesses, not
right.
diseases. But I was just told, oh, it's totally normal. You just take this prescription medication for the rest of your life. And, if we need to increase the dosage, we increase the dosage. And it was a little alarming to me, but I thought, I'm really focused on just getting pregnant. And so I'll do what you say and be done with it. 3 years later, I was still going through infertility, and it really just opened my eyes up to I have to actually be the CEO of my own health. I have to figure this out myself. And so I started reading my own lab results and I started researching this disease I have, Hashimoto's, and learning more about what some of the drivers are, what this medication was doing and not doing, and realized I was just treating the symptoms and not treating the underlying root cause, not actually trying to heal my metabolic health. And the body, particularly with fertility, but with a lot of the things we're looking to do to make ourselves look and feel better every single day, like those are extra when it comes to the body. And if the body doesn't have enough energy to do, whether it's getting pregnant or having nice hair and skin, it does those things last.
Right.
And so, figuring this out and finding functional medicine, I was able to get pregnant, have my two children, and actually completely reverse my disease. But what really inspired me to create Veracity was I started sharing this story with people casually. And I was like, wow, my story is actually not unique. Like that was the more alarming
Yeah.
thing for me. And what I saw was that, we have functional medicine, but people only come to it too little too late. And I had previously to starting my company, I was the CEO of a big fashion brand. I also worked in beauty. And I really understood that those businesses did a really good job of meeting people where they are and trying to help them look and feel better every day. And I thought, wow, we can actually do the same thing with functional medicine. And so that's what I got super interested in. And then also personally, I became a certified health coach and thought the future of brands and especially in the health and wellness space needs to not just be product. It's what I like to call like product plus service. And so that's something we pride ourselves on at Veracity is not just selling someone a bottle of pills, but also they don't need to be a biohacker or an expert, but they need to understand what are the things outside of just swallowing a pill that are really going to make an impact to getting where they want to be.
I'm so fascinated by this topic because I've gone down a health journey myself. For the last couple of years, I've lost over 70 pounds.
Congratulations.
I'm
That's
fat now,
amazing.
but I was even much
Oh,
fatter.
you're
But
looking good.
thank you. The thing that gets me is that the way medicine works in America just
Mhm.
doesn't really treat, as you said, the underlying issues. And
Yes.
it's kind of something, just take this pill, right?
Yes.
So now I'm looking at peptides, I'm looking at my blood work, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to go as deep as you did. And I think it's something that people want, right? This,
Yes.
especially this younger generation, they're not as easy to be sold on just take the pill.
Yeah.
And so your story resonates with so many people out there. How do you tell that story on Amazon?
Yeah.
I know Amazon is such an amazing platform because, as you said, that's where the people are.
Mm.
They're searching a certain amount of ways. We look at that information so often because this is like the basis of why we're successful selling on Amazon is we understand how people are going to buy a product before we even decide to do that product.
Yes.
Right? And how many people are searching for it, how many different keywords they're using to find it. Something like that you wanted to do, how did you know there was demand for it on Amazon already?
I think we knew that there probably would be based on the demand we saw from our own website. And I have been a big believer for years that you really have to meet people where they are. You can't force behavior.
Right.
You need to, and our brand is all about trust. And we're backed by
Right.
a team of 11 doctors. Everything is clinically researched, third party tested, all of these things. And so, it was just kind of obvious to me that we would have demand there. But when it comes to, your main question of how do you drive attention or how do you convince something on Amazon? I think two things that I've really learned make a big impact is one, the shopper, you have to really get into the Amazon shopper's mind where someone maybe coming to a independent website, is going to take some time, spend maybe even up to like 5 or 10 minutes researching. The Amazon consumer really wants to kind of compare things quickly. And so you have to get to those buyer decision questions through the carousel. And so we're constantly trying to iterate there and test and figure out how to make sure that that is as effective as possible.
So it's an incredible space because it does take a lot of research for people to get to that point. They've undergone obviously something in their lives, right?
Hmm.
That sparked this, right? And so knowing who your customer is, what they could potentially be facing in their own lives, and then being able to communicate that. And it's the same whether you're selling a toy or to a mom. Why do they want this product? Is it just because they need a decent looking fun gift for a 3-year-old, or is it because it's an educational gift? And what type of education, what are the benefits? And so understanding who your shoppers are is crucial to winning on Amazon.
Agreed. Agreed.
Now, you're doing a lot of that communicating in the carousel, and you sell quite a bit on your own website, and now Amazon has become this massive channel for you. How are you approaching Amazon from an ad strategy with your category in particular being sponsored product heavy?
The way we're approaching advertising on Amazon is we want to, of course, win on certain keywords and make sure we're showing up. I think also because it's a category naturally where people compare, we want to think about like what other competitors are going to come up and how do we make sure we're also in that consideration set when someone might have heard about another competitor either on Amazon or off Amazon. How do we make sure we present there? Particularly because within our space, we're the leading doctor recommended brand in natural and safe metabolic health. But there's a lot of ways people might frame that of GLP-1 booster or fat burner or things. And I think what's exciting for us is that almost immediately when, if someone's in that category, we have been able to tell that we can differentiate ourselves very quickly. And I think what is also exciting for us is that we're very premiumly priced in our category, but that hasn't shied shoppers
Right.
away because I think the mode, especially in health and wellness now, has come from just like, let me try anything, get the cheapest thing possible to I want to get something that actually works.
Right.
And then people are willing to pay up for that.
And not just works, but something you can trust.
Yes. Right, because you're putting it in your body,
Right.
presumably almost every single day.
Yeah. And I've seen this strategy with many different categories. I do a lot of baby and toy products.
You
Moms
probably
will
sold a lot of things to me.
probably own some of my branded stuff. So we have because we have wooden puzzles, we have educational things, we have outdoors, we have a lot of different products. But we are not always the cheapest priced either because we do a lot of the extra safety checks. We do make sure the quality is good because this is a product that could, if it's cheap, it could break off, it could injure the child.
Yes.
And that's nothing that that's to me, that's something that we need to focus on. For you, they're putting it in their body. You've done all the extra testing and you know it works.
Hmm.
So people are willing to spend up for that.
Yes.
And it's not because you want to kill them with a much higher margin. It's because you need to make sure that your quality stays as high as it does.
Yes, exactly.
Now, let's talk about repeat purchases. In marketing terms, this is called LTV or lifetime value. And then on the other side, you have an acquisition cost. And now I like to always break business down into two things, traffic and conversions.
Okay.
No matter whether you have a hot dog stand on the corner, it's how many people walk past the hot dog stand, and that's your traffic. And how many people stop to buy a hot dog, that's your conversions. You can do a lot of things to dress it up. You can have beautiful signs and smells coming out of it, and then more people are more likely to convert.
Mm.
If you're just selling hot dogs out of a cooler, it's
Mhm.
going to be much tougher, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be your carousel.
Mhm.
Your how nicely you dress up your product and explain what it does is going to be your content, and then that increases conversion rates.
Yes.
So content, conversions, traffic. How do you market to someone that you know is likely going to purchase multiple times in a space? And I think that this is what a lot of sellers make the mistake. They want the ads to be profitable maybe from the very first purchase, which is not realistic in many categories
Mhm.
because you're building a long-term relationship with your customers
Yes.
and you know that. So talk to me a little bit about how you balance your acquisition cost and your repeat purchases, maybe through subscribe and save.
Yeah, so that's a super important barometer for us because it's honestly my personal goal in, a lot of why do people come to metabolic health? It is for like the immediate benefits, which are, weight loss or weight management, body composition, energy. Those are kind of the big ones. But I think our industry has trained people incorrectly. They've trained them on these like short term quick fixes, even healthy things. So think about just the whole 30 challenge, right? Like it's only for 30 days. Like you don't say like I want to build muscles and you go to the gym for a month and you're like, I'm starting to see some tone and then you never show up at the gym again because you know that those muscles will not be sustained, right? And it's the same thing with metabolic health and weight management. And so, we've learned a lot honestly over the last 2.5 years of what I will say is really important is setting consumer expectations up front on what is the product supposed to do, how long are you supposed to use it, etc. And it's funny, I actually had an investor the other day, a potential investor ask me, well, why don't you just use things like Fozempic and these other terms because you could probably sell a lot more. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I could. But then you're setting somebody up with the expectation that they're going to see these like ridiculous results within, 15 days or something of using it, and then they're going to churn. And so everything we have done at Veracity is to really, how do we maximize that like long-term tail and really create more of a multivitamin of metabolic health and healthy weight management.
Allie just said a term I've never heard, which I think is the most brilliant term I've heard in a long time. Multivitamin of metabolic health. To me, when I hear that, as someone who yo-yos in weight because I'm on something, I'm off something, or I'm working on something, you're absolutely right with the gym analogy you made, which is like you don't just stop after 30 days. You have to set that expectation up front. And I think a lot of brands don't do this properly. And the lesson for all of you sellers out there, setting expectations can avoid a couple different things. Negative reviews later, which can really, really hurt your conversion rates later versus your competitors, but also help you build a deeper, more trusting relationship with your consumers or with
Mhm.
your buyers, like your
Yes.
customers, right?
Yes.
And so I love that you approach it that way. Can you tell me what is your strategy on the subscribe and save in particular? Because this is something where Amazon has offered us the ability to offer these deep discounts on the first purchase. And what do you do anything with that specific type of deal?
Yeah, that's actually the deal I like the most because it encourages that right behavior. And we do see actually, I was shocked by this because I just presumed that retention on Amazon subscribers would be like materially lower than our own website, but it's not. Like people get it and honestly maybe it's because it's ingrained into their Amazon behavior. They're maybe even more likely to keep it because they're not seeing separate charges from things. But yeah, I like to, of course, there's bigger times like Prime Day and things like that where we participate in more just straight discounts, but really our discounting strategy is focused on building subscribe and save clients.
And that's the best way to approach is that you're building that relationship with customers and they know you care
Mhm.
and you know that they need it for a while, like for the long term.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If it's something you've been taking every day, you don't want to run out either. So it actually makes sense and it really adds to the main Amazon customer promise, which is convenience, right?
Absolutely. And I know we're out of time. I just want one more very, very rapid fire question for you.
Great.
When I hear the word veracity, I think tenacious. I think I'm going to attack something. Why Veracity? Why did you name the brand Veracity?
So it actually means habitually truthful. And
Oh,
so,
I'm just terrible at English.
no, that's okay. And so one thing that just stood for me is like it's your own truth, like within your body. It's our promise to our clients that we want to be truthful and transparent and, verify that the things we're doing are working. And it's about finding what is right for you. And my favorite term is you got to be the CEO of your own health. And, to me that name really reinforced that. And it's kind of your own power too. I like that part of it.
Your own power. I love that. For all of you entrepreneurs, sellers out there that are watching, you can get started and grow a brand on Amazon, and they give you the tools to do it. So dive in, use all the tools they give you because they know what they're doing, and you too can build a major brand like Allie here. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.